were right, Lori. That was an absolutely wonderful treat.
Well, we'll bring Nate back in a little bit, Rochelle, but right now, let's get ready to start telling a few more stories.
There was a sheriff deputy here, I'm not going to say who, but he was tough and hard-headed, wouldn't give anyone a single break, and wouldn't listen to anyone. You try, and all he'd say is, bring it to the judge. Well, on this one day, the deputy knocked on a house to serve a warrant. The man who opened the door said, yes, that's my dad, but he's gone.
Well, I suggest you get this to him.
You don't understand, he's gone. He can't come to court.
You better see he gets to court, and I don't care how you get him there, or I'll be coming to serve a warrant on you next.
But you don't understand.
Oh, I understand all right.
But
Whatever you have, bring it to the judge.
And the deputy walked off. On the court date, the same man who answered the door showed up at court first thing in the morning. Everyone turned their head and they heard a thumping coming up the steps and the squeaky tire of a wheelbarrow. Inside of the wheelbarrow was the heavy headstone of the man's father. The judge asked,
What is the meaning of this?
well, Judge, I was told to get my father to court or get served myself. This is all that's left of him that's above the ground.
Well, now, that was a tricky story.
Hey, Lori.
Hey, Sadie.
What's a vampire's favorite candy?
Well, I don't know, Sadie. What is a vampire's favorite candy?
A sucker.
Hey, Lori.
Hey, Jeremy.
What is a vampire's favorite?
Sorry. Okay, no problem.
What monster loves to dance?
To dance. I don't know, Jeremy. What monster loves to dance?
The boogeyman.
I think these kids are trying to tell us it's time to get back to some more spooky stories. And it's a good thing this region is full of them.
Years and years ago, before automobiles were commonplace and a person still had to dodge horse manure walking down Main Street, an old man would visit town. He always had a bucket perched upside down on his left shoulder. This man's true name has since been lost to time, but everyone knew him as Old Buckethead. He'd bring his old nag, Laverne, to Main Street to haul back enough groceries to last a month. Old Buckethead was never known to take a wife or have a family and lived a solitary life down in his holler. No one in town really knew him, but they all anticipated his arrival each month, as sure as they counted on the full moon. And each autumn, we children could count on hearing this story again from our grandfather. He always started it the same. It was mid-October.
It was mid-October, and a cool Saturday morning, with the previous night's fog finally burning away. The street was already busy as people went about their trading and gossip. Old Buckethead moseyed up the street with Laverne. He was not a pleasant-looking man, with a half-grown beard, pock-marked face, and scraggly teeth spaced out like tombstones in an old cemetery. His arrival always created a small stir in the community. They were afraid, though he gave no reason for them to fear him, except that he looked different. Well, like the wild tidings that sometimes accompany a full moon, Old Buckethead's arrival ignited a similar dread.
Look, it's Old Buckethead.
Johnny just told me that old Buckethead was down at the library, and he's heading up this way.
Oh no, I'm gonna go the opposite direction. He gives me a fright when he makes eye contact with me.
Mommy, that man scares me.
Here comes old Buckethead. Let's go the other way.
Here he comes.
I think it's time to finish our shopping and leave now.
As you can tell, old Buckethead did not have any friends. He might even say he liked it that way. Most folks were scared of him. Some were just plain mean.
Hey, old Buckethead, scare any babies today?
Oh, let me be now.
Why do you wear that bucket, Buckethead? You hiding something?
Oh,
Yes,
let
indeed.
me be.
And that was the question. Why do you wear that head bucket? Why do you wear that bucket on your head? No one knew. Was he hiding something? Was it money? Some kind of treasure? There were even rumors that he kept a pet bat or possum in there, shielding it from the daylight. The fact was, no one knew. This piqued the curiosity of three boys here in town. These boys were not shining examples of do-goodery. They were actually known to cause a fair amount of trouble. Ted, Joe, and William, champions of cow tipping, egg throwing, and chicken thieving. Not in school by choice, and not quite old enough for jail by law, Ted, Joe, and William were playing marbles and heard old Buckethead growling up the street. They stopped their game and started following him, wondering out loud what was underneath that bucket.
I bet he's got some kind of animal up in there, crawls out at night. Dang, what if it's a spider or something?
Ted, that's stupid. Animal wouldn't live up there. I didn't say live. Joe, maybe it's just sleeping.
I think it's money, and I'm willing to bank a bet on it.
Will, what makes you so sure of that?
Watch him at his next stop. See where he gets his money.
Ted, Joe, and Will followed old Buckethead, staying back several paces so as not to draw suspicion. They watched closely as he stopped at the general store. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a wad of bills, counting them to the cashier. When he went through those bills, he realized he did not have enough money. He growled again and quickly reached up to the bucket, slipping his fingers quickly inside and pulling out another stack of bills.
See, I told you. That's where he keeps his money.
Watching all this, Will devised a plan. The boys knew the vicinity of where old Buckethead lived. A dirt road went up into a hollow about a mile away from town. That was about as far as anyone went towards old Buckethead's cabin. People were generally too afraid to follow him, and if someone were to tempt fate by doing so, old Buckethead was not shy with his old shotgun. Or so the townfolk had told each other anyway. Ted, the most squirrely of the three, had to be talked into going up that dirt road, but promises of treasure helped entice him. They waited until after dark, using the light of the full moon to help them find their way. They followed the dirt road and then had to scour the side of the mountain for a long while until Joe caught the glimmer of candlelight through a window. Then, as if someone was watching over them, clouds obscured the light, and they quickly but quietly stepped up to the window. Will, being the tallest, got the first look. The dying flames in the fireplace inside gave the room an eerie orange glow and caused shadows to dance over the walls.
Look, old Buckethead lying there in a cot next to the wall. His mouth is wide open, showing his big tombstone maw.
Oh my gosh!
Keep it down. You don't want to wake the old man up. Let's find a way in quietly.
The three boys snuck in through the open window and tiptoed over to where he was sleeping.
Go ahead. Ted, take that bucket off his shoulder so we can grab the loot and run.
Me? Well, why does it have to be me? It was your idea. You do it.
Aw, Dad, both you chickens. I'll do it. But I get more of the treasure.
good deal.
Joe stepped forward, but cringed when a floorboard creaked.
Old Buckethead snorted loudly but did not wake up. Joe exhaled before moving forward again. Ever so slowly, he placed his hands around the bucket, readying himself to pull it up. His splayed out fingers on the bucket, he inhaled quickly and lifted the bucket up.
What are you doing? Get out of here!
What they saw under that bucket when it was removed was not treasure. It was not money. It was not a bat or a possum. It was another head! Old Buckethead's brother, or at least that's what the townsfolk would later call him, or it. As Joe lifted that bucket, this other head was awakened, his eyes rolling round like billiard balls in their sockets, his three-toothed mouth screaming in surprise. He woke up Buckethead, and they started screaming in unison.
Ted, being the squirrely one, got out quicker than a jackrabbit with his tail on fire, running and tripping, falling and crawling all the way back down the mountain. Will and Joe were too surprised and scared to run, and old Buckethead and his brother could move pretty quickly for an old man, or old men. Ted ran to the first house he saw and told his story.
He arrived at our house, pale as a ghost. We all ran out and alerted other people and the law. At the first sign of light, a group of men from town, with the law leading the way, headed up that old dirt road. Finally finding that cabin as the sun crested the hilltops. I kept the poor boy until his parents came.
Meanwhile, the men reached old Buckethead's house. They knocked the door down, holding shotguns with hound dogs ready to go. But there was no one there. The fire had burned itself out. A few coins were on the floor next to the old cot. Underneath the bed was an old bucket on its side. The owner and the occupant of that bucket were nowhere to be found. Neither was William or Joe. The townsfolk talked about this for years, but Ted never did. In fact, he rarely said anything from then on. He became known for a streak of silver hair that went across his right temple on the night he ran away.
Now in our day, all these years later, that old dirt road has become overgrown, the woods taking it over for its own. If a person persists, they could possibly come across old Buckethead's cabin on the side of that ridge. It's probably covered in moss and decayed by now. If you do by chance run across that cabin on a full moon night, it's quite possible you might find an old, rusty bucket, a little larger than a grown man's head. Out of respect, just leave it there, and hopefully that's all you will find.
Well, I can tell you, I'm leaving it there for sure. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to go out looking for it.
Me either. Lori, some of our stories go back several hundred years, like Rutherford Manor in Kingsport and Russell Bean in Jonesborough. But Claire was telling me a story that was told to some of the first settlers by the Cherokee who used to live here. And they had this story for generations before the settlers came.
That's right, Rochelle. Well, for more than 800 years, people have been seeing the Brown Mountain Lights, not too far from here in western North Carolina. They're a bunch of circular lights, usually red and glowing, and they float and creep along the ridge at night. Some of the earliest legends say the lights are mothers of Catawba warriors looking for their sons who died in battle. This is one of the most long-lasting documented sightings of an apparition in the United States. Our government started getting involved after a fisherman reported sighting in 1911. A geological survey team was sent and later determined the lights were likely from a train. But in 1922, the bridges and power plants got washed out. No lights, no electricity, no trains, and no traffic. But the lights still appeared. The U.S. government has investigated the Brown Mountain Lights 3 different times, with no conclusive explanations offered.
That was mysterious. And as far as headlights go, there were no headlights 800 years ago when the first accounts of these lights were reported.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Yarn Exchange Radio Show on WETS 89.5 out of Johnson City, Tennessee.